Hi everybody, I'm Raven the Swift and welcome to Raven Reviews. And today we're going to be reviewing some video from the Winner's Edge Symposium. And this is a pretty high level tournament. There's 3 Warlords in it and some pretty good up and comers. There's actually 3 that are pretty good, have a lot of potential. And today we're going to be talking about how basically movement faults and inferior positions can kind of screw you out of a win. If you don't know me, I'm basically a warlord from the Rising Winds. I have 15 tournament wins out of my belt, and I have won tournaments in 6 different kingdoms, all against warlords and sword knights. Basically, I have a lot of experience, and I've been doing it for about 20 years. So when I do reviews like these, I don't talk about honor, I don't talk about what shots are landed or not, because I wasn't there. Those are also non-productive topics and comments in terms of actually learning stuff from this kind of stuff. Anyways, so let's go ahead and start. We got Warlord Bell and Warlord Nip. Bell has won many tournaments, especially many IK tournaments, and Bell is a recent warlord out of Crystal Groves. Nip is a recent warlord out of Crystal Groves, and he's very talented. So yeah, let's get into it. So the very first thing we're going to see is a feel-out process of who's doing what. Bell is a counterpuncher and likes to, and then kind of suppresses enemies with lots of interesting counters and stuff like that. So the first thing that happens here, and I just want to talk about it, let's see if I can go back, is that Nip chooses to basically get past this intermediate range that's between the 2 fighters. So if these are both the fighters, there's space between them, right? And in that space, depending on how far apart they are, more attacks can land in that space. When you're farther away, the more possible attacks that can happen to you as you're closing range, and the more counters that can happen. And the closer the range is, the less that can possibly happen. And closing that range is often pretty good when you're fighting someone who's a counter puncher or someone who throws a lot of counter timed moves, is that if I can get past the intermediate range, I can expose myself to less danger. And Nip decides to just do that, and he does it with a cross attack, which means their swords are crossed when after he lands the attack. So if he throws a flat cross, their swords are crossed, and he's allowed to close ground because his opponent's sword is occupied with his sword. He does it very explosively. He does it with a jump, which I'm not sure if I like or dislike, but it is what it is. So let's take a look. So this is where he decides to close ground. Had his foot not come off the ground, I feel like he could have landed more attacks with that close. He could have probably done 2 or 3 attacks after that. I like that he hit Bell in the leg to take away his mobility. When you're fighting someone who's very high skill, if you can take away their mobility, excellent. Mostly because warlords and high skill fighters can usually use their mobility against their opponent. So if you're an up and coming fighter, hit him in the leg. So Bell actually does something, I'm going to go back real quick. Bell does something great that's normally the opposite of what most people expect. Is Nip here with the blue shield is fighting Bell, who's legged. And because the opponent is legged, they have a superior static defense. Because now that they don't have legs, which your leg is like half your body at least, that surface area of the shield theoretically covers more of your body, and there's less angles for your opponent to attack. So they're kind of like a turtle, if you imagine. And normally the guy who's standing is going to be the one who's going to be attacking his opponent, try to bait them out so that they can get them out from behind their shield. Bell actually does this in this case, being the turtle, is actually going to bait Nip here out of his defense and throws a counter, which is kind of cool. Let's check it out. Bell's going to strike Nip's shield, and he ends up throwing a dark side on him. It's one of the important things that when you're immobile, that you remain threatening to your opponent. Bell got so lucky with that attack. Nip almost killed him. That's one of the weird things that can kind of happen, and there's not a lot you can really do to mitigate that situation, other than hopefully you make the right decisions as it's happening. It's not a lot of times that you find yourself in those precarious situations. Bell accidentally hit Nip in the head, so they're going to reset, which is the appropriate thing to do if you're the aggressor. If you're the defender, technically you don't have to reset, but when you're that high level, you typically have mutual respect for one another, and you just kind of reset it. So I want to talk about this situation that just happened and why. Alright, so here we go. So Bell moved into range for an attack, and instead of keeping both his feet on the ground, he is incapable of movement during this part. Because if you have one leg on the ground, you can't like move anymore, right? Because he's so committed to the attack, he basically can only his only possible actions are to commit fully to the attack now because he's off of one leg. But Nip is also in the same situation. The difference is that Nip had both his feet on the ground when he made the decision to hit Bell, whose foot was not on the ground. These guys even throw the exact same attack at each other. It just happens that Bell hits Nip in the arm and Nip hits Bell in the shoulder. It's really important that you try to keep both your feet on the ground as much as you can. And in a situation like this, I don't know if I probably would not sacrifice my mobility just for a greater chance of possibly hitting somebody. I would probably look at just setting up my attack better, maybe throwing a combination. Something allows me to keep my feet on the floor so I can continue to make decisions. One of the definitions for intelligence that they use in like AI development and stuff like that is intelligence is defined as taking action that allows for future freedom of action. If I take an action that takes one of my feet off the ground, now I can't make an action to move. And I can't make an action to possibly do something. Like if I've committed all my resources to an attack, I can't come out of that decision. And whatever I'm just apt to whatever happens in that decision. And if Bell misses in this case, then he kind of screws himself. So let's go ahead and play it. He ended up hitting Nip in the arm. Nip hit him in the shoulder and the body. Both these guys giving their respect to each other to kind of get a little break between sets, or between matches, or between rounds, sorry. Nip did a good job there just committing to the wounded opponent. When someone's wounded like that and they're trying to take their time, it's actually a good strategy just to chase them down with reservation, but threatening to such a degree that they do not get any control in the fight and how it ends. If you give someone credence and you allow them to start making decisions, there's a good chance they can come back from it, especially against another Warlord. So committing to your attack is not a bad idea in this case. Nice money shot attempt by Nip. That's a pretty safe shot to throw. I love that leg attack that Nip just did because he wasn't actually intending to hit him in the leg. He was actually trying to hit him in the arm. If you guys see that when I go back, he hits him in the arm and he's planning on Bell to actually return as he's getting hit in the leg. And Nip was planning to dark side him in the arm and just narrowly missed. Something I like that Bell does here is he keeps his rear leg up on the ground, which gives him athletic options for an attack. If he had both his knees on the ground, he can't really turn, and he can't explosively do things. But if he has his foot up, he can. I want to go back and look at Nip's attack for this. Something that I love that he does is he throws his money shot in such a way that he actually had more than one attack option. So normally, if he just threw this attack straight up and didn't expect his opponent to do anything, he would only have one attack option, which is that sword side hip. But because Nip probably expected Bell to actually throw something, he actually gets two attack options instead. So instead of just that sword side hip, what actually becomes available to him is inside shoulder, inside the sword side shoulder. And there's actually a little pause that Nip kind of does right as he does the attack to where he could possibly make an option change to this other attack when he went to throw it. So here he goes to throw the attack. And because Bell attacked him, and Nip knew that he probably wasn't in any danger from being struck in the torso, there's an inside arm option here for Nip and sword side hip, depending on how it happens. Let's go and play it. Yep. Inside arm. Go back and watch again. That's such a beautiful shot. He said inside arm and leg. So the attack options were there. And I think Nip made good use of it. Nip ended up winning. So yeah, that's been it, guys. If you like my reviews, you can continue to watch stuff on my YouTube channel. You can submit your video to Swift Combat and Fitness on our Discord channel. Or if you really, really, really want your video reviewed, you can sign up for a review session with me. I also do coaching and personal training. And this video is actually sponsored by Optimum Arms. Optimum Arms. Optimum Arms makes the best equipment for boffer combat. If you're a competitive fighter and looking to really up your game, one of the best possible things you can do is actually increase you can up the equipment that you use, basically. And if you use the best equipment possible, it allows you to express your skills in a more accurate way to which they are, so they can be represented better. So yeah, if you really want to get good at tournaments and want some good equipment, go to OptimumArms.com. Thanks, guys. Bye.